at the beginning, I'd like to record the session so that we're also able to share this particular webinar on our Ubuntu platform and people can have access to it post the session. Dr. Matlala, before I fully hand over to you, I've got just a few questions just to set up the context and just to, get the ball rolling, right? So before we get into monitoring, evaluation, and learning in itself, from your experience, what are some of the biggest realities youth organizations are currently dealing with on the ground?
Yeah, yeah, thanks a lot for that question, Tammy. It is quite a lot. I'm sure some they can agree with me here, but we can agree on this that one of the biggest realities is that many youth organizations in Africa as well as in this country are doing deeply important work, but under very difficult conditions. So they are dealing with limited funding, small teams, increasing social challenges affecting young people, and growing pressure from donors and the partners to demonstrate measurable impact because that's what donors are interested in nowadays. So many of these organizations then are balancing program delivery, what they need to deliver as a program, mentorship, reporting, on the other side, fundraising, administration, and community engagement. And they are doing all these simultaneously. So now that's where MERL often becomes something organizations need to know about and but struggle to prioritize operationally. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of struggling to prioritize operationally, monitoring, evaluation, and learning, why do you think many of these organizations struggle to demonstrate that impact, even when they're doing important work? And why is MEL essentially a challenge for a lot of youth development organizations?
Yeah, that's a good question. Not really, not only though for youth organizations, but for most organizations that are in the social development sector. I think these organizations are creating an impact. I don't want to take that away from them, but they are not always documenting it systematically and translating into evidence. And I think that's where most challenge is. You can do a good work, but if you can't document that systematically and translate that into evidence that everyone can see, it becomes an issue. So often organizations focus heavily on activities, workshops, events, attendance, and we call these outputs. I'll talk about them later because those are actually easier to do, are easier to count. It's easier to count how many people attended an event, etc. But then, well, we need to go beyond that because when we demonstrate impact, it means we require asking deeper questions. And these are questions such as what changed? And who benefited and what happened after the intervention itself. So that's the biggest challenge. And another challenge is that these organizations, of course, sometimes think that impact measurement must be highly technical or expensive. It is expensive, I mean, to do an impact evaluation, but it's something which needs to be done, which for them it can be intimidating because of those reasons. Yeah.
I mean, lastly, man, you've just spoken about the cost of monitoring and evaluation. Do you think this might be a reason why maybe grassroots organizations or smaller organizations sometimes assume or sometimes look at it for as monitoring and evaluation is something for large or established organizations with big budgets?
Absolutely. That assumption exists quite strongly in South Africa and Africa in general. This is because many smaller organizations think that M&E requires consultant, expensive softwares, or large research teams. And and that is why they think this is not for us. We don't have time for this. This is for large organizations with larger budget. But sometimes of the most powerful M&E practices are actually simple, you know. We just have to have that culture within the organization. For example, things such as reflection sessions, things such as participant feedback, before and after questions, storytelling, observation notes, and consistent tracking change over time. These are the things that, they are simple to be done, and most organizations are not doing them, and they really don't need a lot of budget. Of course, there's M&E that requires a lot of budget, but there's M&E that could be quite simple, but can also help you as an organization to track your progress. And so I would say, in short, good monitoring evaluation is less about organizational size, Sami, but is more about intentional learning, if I can put it that way. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Dr. Matlala, before I hand over to you completely, I just want to share with the people who have joined us. If you've just joined us, please feel free to write your name, your organization, and where you're joining us from in the chat box. Also, our comms officer manager, Lolo, is also, interacting and responding to some of your questions in the chat box. You will see he's posting up questions as well. So please feel free to utilize the chat box as well, right? If you also have questions during the presentation, and you think you might forget it by the time we get to maybe the question and answer session, the chat box is also a place where you can put those questions in, and we will ensure that, we try our best to make sure that your questions are answered and, you get a response to it by the end of the session in itself. With that being said, Dr. Matlala, I'd like to hand over to you to to present what you've prepared for us. All the best. And to everyone, let us learn, let us engage, and let us enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tammy. I'm just going to share my presentation. You let me know if you can see it from your side.
Okay. I can see your screen, not your presentations as yet.
Not yet. Okay.
There we go. You just
Pop
need
it
to go
now.
into slide. Yeah, there we go. Perfect.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, colleagues, I know I've been given about an hour. I'll try to make sure that I stay within that time frame. I mean, time time is a quite important thing for M&E people. I'm sure most people in this room know that. But as an evaluator, we respect time because at some point we need to do things efficiently. And then I'll try to my best to do that. Also, I'll try my best not to get too excited. No, because when I talk about M&E, I get quite excited, and my students know me for that and end up not teaching other things. So, but this session, colleagues, is not about complicated theories or donor jargon or a lecture, actually. We're going to have a conversation. We're going to have a conversation about helping youth organizations to think differently about impact, also about evidence, also about learning, and also sustainability. Oh, sorry. So, like I said, from my conversation with Tammy, many organizations are already doing powerful work in communities. That one we can all agree, but often struggle to demonstrate and measure and communicate that impact effectively. And then hence now it feels like their work is being undermined. So this session is really about that practical monitoring and evaluation, which is going to be basic, because it can take quite a lot to learn the entire M&E, but at least to know and think differently about it. So also to think about it, how M&E work in real organizations with real constraints, which are something that, in my experience and from what I've studied, are things that I've seen so far. Yeah. Okay. Just to touch again on the reality of organizations, of youth organization in the continent and in the country. So many youth development organizations operate in environments characterized by the following: limited funding and resources. I think that one is the first challenge that we can all agree with. And then we are fighting for donors and we are fighting for funding. But also, I've mentioned that there is increasing social challenges affecting young people in South Africa. And that is something we all see, something that we all witness. And that burden is facing us, the youth organizations. Also, there's a pressure from the founders to demonstrate impact, but this pressure doesn't only come from the founders. I think even community themselves, they want to see the impact that these youth organizations are making. They will start asking questions such as, but what is it that they are doing since they started to exist? Have you seen anything? So those are the questions. So, and then of course, when you look at these youth organizations, most of them, especially those that I work with, they are small teams, and they are managing multiple responsibilities. And there's growing expectations for accountability and visibility for them. So I've seen them like they have to do a lot because they feel like they're not doing much and stuff. But in cases because there's no budget really to have a big team. But at the same time, these organizations, they are expected to show measurable results regardless of these challenges. They are supposed to collect evidence. They're supposed to produce reports, and they are supposed to also demonstrate long impact on young people and communities. So, colleagues, we can all acknowledge these realities that these organizations face. And some of these constraints, they lead to burnout, most people even quitting, um, working for these organizations where we've got limited staffing. And those are real challenges that these people are facing. So if you see them, give them a hug. They are going through a lot. They're doing a lot to keep our country and our youth, active in this country. So, but then this session is not about really criticizing this organization, really, but it's about helping them to strengthen how they understand and demonstrate their impact, because that is important. So, because as I said, good MERL or good monitoring and evaluation is not about creating more paperwork. It's not really about that. If maybe your perception was about that, but it is about helping these organizations understand whether they are truly making a difference and how they can improve that impact that they are already making on the ground. So then let's talk about funders, because these are the ones that really give us money to make sure that we do our work. Also, let's talk about communities and partners. What is it that they actually want from these organizations? So, the organizations, like I said, are increasingly expected to demonstrate real impact. The word impact is quite big, but I'll say, let me use it interchangeably with they expect this organization to demonstrate real change on the ground. Let me just put it that way. So now these stakeholders are no longer interested about how many workshops were conducted, how many people attended, or how many activities took place. I think they are now no longer in that stage where these for them is sufficient. They are moving away from that. And then now what they want to see things such as what really changed as a result of this intervention, as a result of these programs, as a result of this project. But also they want to know who benefited and how, and also how young people were impacted. Um, how were they influenced as a result of these interventions? Remember, there's a lot of money that went through this intervention. So they want to know how they were impacted and whether programs are creating sustainable value. And that one is key, colleagues. Sustainable value, something that is not just for now. Then, and when we track it in the next 5 to 10 years, then is no longer there. We have seen how many programs that came and existed, and if we track and see their impact over long years, and we see that some actually did not really do anything. So now these three stakeholders here, they could be many, but these three are key, which are the funders, communities, and partners. What they want to see in a nutshell is accountability, is credibility, is learning. Is the organization learning from the success and challenges? I would like to emphasize on this one, colleagues. That is why some will frame monitoring and evaluation and learning, because the learning component is quite important. I mean, are we learning from our successes and challenges? Sometimes from our failures. There's a culture in South Africa where if we evaluate a project or a program or something, then we find out that it has failed or it did not deliver as intended, then we just take those reports, we bury them somewhere, and we never learn from them, and we never. So but that's not how evaluation works. If there are things that we've done and they were not done right, for us, many people, that also serves as an opportunity to learn from it. So, but to carry on, also, they want to see impact, as I've said, is the program creating meaningful change in the lives of young people? Is there a contribution or attribution that this program is actually, or this intervention is doing to the young people and it's creating to the young people? So, lastly, sustainability, which I talk about. So, colleagues, let me say this, which is an important point, especially for youth organization people which are here or are directors for those organizations. I would say that many of you guys already have evidence of impact, but it is not organized. I can tell you, like not measured consistent or not communicated effectively. And then that is a challenge for me because it's not like you exist and not do anything. There is something that they're doing, but you just have to learn ways of how to measure that consistently and how to organize that data so that it can speak for itself. So now the organizations that survive and grow are often not only doing good work, but those that are able to demonstrate and communicate their work clearly to the community, to the funders, and to the partners, so that it can be seen. Easy again when you request for a funding, because if that evidence is collected and stored somewhere, it can just speak for itself. So we've got this thing of saying, just let the evidence speak for itself of the good work that you're doing. So, and for evidence to speak for itself, you need to organize it nicely. Okay. So now, now this is the biggest mistake that most of youth organizations make. And I've seen this trend across the country, also in the continent, because I work with some of these youth organizations in the continent. So we see that many organizations confuse activity with impact. I can tell you, how many people, they've got a lot of jargons and stuff like that. I remember there's a time I spent a lot of time just unpacking this concept in my class, and it just took the entire period just to work through these terms. But just for the sake of this session, we want to talk about it, like, and what is the difference between the activity and the impact. I mean, it's good to be doing things, but it's even great when you're doing things right and you're doing them the right way as well. So, and then I think that's where some of the confusion comes in here. So the common challenge will be that we'll focus heavily on the activities, the things that need to be done, which includes against the attendance of how people attend those activities, the events, and outputs, without really adequately measuring whether meaningfully change uh actually occurred. So we're just interested that yeah, things have happened. A lot of people were there, but didn't really meaningfully change them and stuff. And that's where we start measuring now. Like look, colleagues, don't get me wrong, you can start measuring even from the activities that you're doing and see, are you doing the right things? Are you doing the right activities that need to be done? Uh, Before you can even start measuring from the outcome, because I think that's where, of course, we expect to see change, to see what is the outcome. But it's good to measure from the beginning of everything and start measuring from there. It makes it easy. So for you to measure at the end of whatever intervention that was happening. So now, as a result of these, what happens is that organizations then will produce very long reports, large amounts of data. I've seen them, I've read them, especially those that are accessible in public. And they will have these impressive activity numbers. And but then while they still struggling to answer a simple question, such as what difference did the program actually make? Uh, but it looks like a simple question. But for to prove it, is quite tricky if your data and your evidence is not well organized. So when we talk about measuring activities only, of course, we include these things that are listed here on the slides, like which has to do with the number of workshops conducted, number of participants reached, number of social media posts shared, sometimes collecting data that is never used. Most organizations have to do that. You can even see from these questions that they're asking to say, but what are they going to use this information for? Then as a result, the survey is completed but never analyzed. And there's reports written only for compliance purposes because they ask them to produce a report, but they just have to do it because of that for compliance, but not necessarily for something that they could learn from. So again, there's this mistake where these organizations will treat MERL as a donor requirement only. Yeah, I remember a friend of mine who owned a youth organization. I asked them, "Do you want me just to help you with a simple M&E framework so that you can manage?" And they said, "No, the donors didn't never ask about that." But I told them, "We can help you again to see the progress that you're making." They were not interested until later. The donor started to say, "Well, I want to see you the value for the money that we're actually giving you." So that's why they started to come back and ask for the M&E framework. So I think that is a mistake. That is a mistake. Personally, I feel like every organization should have a MERL framework, where they can measure if they're doing the right things and if they can measure if they're doing things right, where they can see the value of everything that they're doing. Because if there's an organization that have key performance indicators, at some point, all those need to lead to something that is called impact, where we all make impact in that organization. So I feel like MERL should not be treated as a donor requirement only, but it should be something that is embedded within the organizational culture of any organization that like to perform best. So, but also we'll have organizations are also focusing on output instead of outcomes. I spoke about that quite enough now. And then until we get to differentiate between what is actually outputs instead and what is actually outcomes, I think that's where most organizations are actually stuck. Because, for example, they will be measuring participation, how many people participated, and they will be quite interested on reporting on that. But how about transformation? How about you also report on transformation? As a result of them participating, was there any transformation? So also there will be measuring visibility instead of meaningful change. Now we need to ask ourselves big questions or deep questions such as, did it really have a meaningful change? I mean, if someone goes through something and come out on that, we expect them to change in terms of number of things. So colleagues, I can say this, that these organizations, they work extremely hard. That one, I cannot take it away from them. And generally care about young people in this country. I've seen them, I've worked with them. But the issue here is not the lack of commitment. That one, I can pledge on them. They are very, very committed people. The issue here is often that organizations um, are not always measuring the right things. Let me put it that way. Are not measuring the things that are required to demonstrate impact. So now, yeah, that is where now good monitoring, evaluation, and learning should come in and should support decision making, learning, program empowerment, rather than just simply reporting to the donors. So I'm just going to run on this slide quite quickly. So what actually matters here? What is it that matters? Because as you join this session, it's about measuring the right things, like right. So what matters? What matters is that, for example, you can see on your left hand side, you can see I tried to make a chart there to say youth development is not only about participation, but also about contributing to the following: growth, opportunity, change, confidence, and empowerment. I mean, these are the things that youth organizations are expected at least to contribute to. These are the things that we expect from them as the community. So what youth organizations should be pay attention to, and what really matters is that they should build confidence and self-belief to young people and start asking questions such, do young people feel more capable, motivated, and empowered? Um, the issue of skills and employability. These are the things that the communities expect from us as youth organizations leaders. Have participants gain practical educational leadership or workplace skills. We've been paying too much attention on advocacy, etc. But do we have those practical educational leadership and workplace skills? Participation and voice. Are young people becoming more engaged in their communities and decision-making spaces? Normally, I will ask my student who are doing masters and ask, like, with all this knowledge that you are gaining here, are you guys doing something in your respective communities, in your local municipalities? Do you in those community meetings? Are you involved? Are you engaging in those? And find out that sometimes 99% of them are not. And I'm asking myself, where do you take your knowledge then? So also there are questions such as behavioral and social change. Are these programs as youth organizations that we're unrolling, are they influencing attitudes, behavior, relationships, or life choices? And because this one is for me, it's a key, especially when even when you develop indicators around this one specifically where you want to influence attitude, behavior, relationship, or life choices. I don't know who remembers. There were organizations such as Live Life. What I worked for those organizations back there. I still know. I'm not sure if they still exist. Their aim was to exist because of these to influence the behavioral and social change. So, but at the end of, they existed for quite some years. Yeah, like as a grown up, they were there for more than 10 years. But it was tricky for me to actually see or to measure if they really influence the attitude of young people, or is the attitude still the same when it comes to certain matters? And is their behavior still the same? Is their life choices still the same, even after they participated in these programs or this intervention? And a lot of money has been spent in those interventions, I can tell you. So now, also access to opportunities, which these are the things young people like to see. Are young people accessing internships, education, employment, mentorship, or networks? Also, long-term development are programs creating sustainable pathways for growth and future success. Colleagues, I can tell you that as youth organizations leaders, these are the things that matters most. I didn't just do this through literature review and stuff, but even through my experience and through talking to other youth organizations leaders, they will tell you these are what young people want to see, and this is what actually matters. So now, if they matter, why are we not really measuring them right and find out if these things are being done accordingly? So, colleagues, of course, the goal here is to shift you away from just counting activities, but to start thinking about transformation. I'm not gonna include the word real transformation. I'm just gonna put it plainly. Transformation. I don't think we are now really working towards that so far. I think so far we're just interested in counting and outputs, etc. So, for example, let's say there's a shy learner. We need to ask questions like this. A shy learner become confident. You've seen this learner was shy, and then as a result of these, they become confident. Also, questions such as a participant gaining leadership skills. You've seen this person before, their leadership skills were weak and low, but as a result of this intervention, now they've got sharp leadership skills. For example, a young person returning to school, they were dropped out because their attitude about school were different, but as a result of this intervention, they are returning back to school. Improve self-esteem and stronger community participation. And these are the things that we like to see when we talk about also behavioral change and social change. So now, the important thing is that many organizations, of course, are already creating these changes, I can tell you. But there's always a but. And that's where I think the whole session for me lies to. They are not documenting this systematically. I don't see it on your reports. I can tell you there's reports that are there in public. I don't see it. Even if I ask for this report, I don't see it. So they really struggle to translate them into evidence. And nowadays, colleagues, it's evidence that people want to see. It's evidence. I'm sure you can see everywhere else. It's about evidence. So if these are things that truly matters, we can all agree that these are the things that truly matters, then are our organizations currently measuring them effectively? And I think I need you to reflect on these things and say, in the organization where I'm working, I work for, I mean, do they really measure these things effectively? And I think because I told Tommy that I'm not going to make it a lecture, so we want to have a conversation ourselves here. So we're going to have an opportunity where we go to a breakaway session. And from there, we are really going to answer the question which I asked, like if we are measuring things effectively, or are we measuring what truly matters, or are we measuring things that really, I'm not saying the other things do not matter, but are we focusing only on outputs, or are we now moving to outcome and impact? So in your groups, colleagues, which they will divide you now. Last time I checked, you guys are 50 here on the call, or I'm not sure if the numbers increased, but if we've got less than 60, we can have three groups. Where in your groups, you think about one youth program or initiative or activity organizations run, or one you know very well. And these are examples that I've given, but I'd like you to think about one. And from there, I want you to just discuss these questions. So beyond attendance, what real change are you hoping young people experience through these programs that we have chosen? And how would you know if that change is actually happening? And also, what simple evidence, simple, I don't want you to make it more technical because it can take us time. Could you realistically collect to show that change? So, can I send you to those group away session for about 10 minutes? 10 minutes? I know it's three questions, and sometimes they need you to think hard. And I know you're still going to introduce yourselves in these rooms, but I just want you to come back and give me what you have thought through with that 10 minutes.
Okay.
So, Tammy, can you help me with that? Yes.
Yes, definitely. We're going to create three breakout rooms, which will roughly have about 17 in a group. So colleagues, please take a screenshot of the questions so that you are able to engage and spend as much time as possible. And then we'll see each other again around potentially 10 past 1. Is that okay? Or 5 past 1? Doctor?
Yeah, let's make it 5 plus 1. 5 plus
5
1.
past 1. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, And then let me open all the rooms and then we'll see you in a bit. Doctor, they are slowly moving into their rooms now, just as a heads up.
Okay. All right. No, thanks.
Um, think on my end, let me pause recording.
All right. Welcome back, colleagues.
Thank you so much, Dr. Matlala. I was going to say, in
Did
the
you?
words of our members, they normally say, there's not enough time. Thank you.
You're welcome. Right. Is everyone here? I assume, right? Okay. The mistake that I've done, Tom, is that I didn't like give groups the names. So, but there were three. I'm sure you will remember assigning them as group one, group two, and group three. But now question is, do do they know which group number are they in?
Hopefully 1, 2, and 3. Perhaps what we can do is one representative from each room can speak on behalf of the room. So we'll then have
Okay. All right. That's great. Can we have a volunteer? I know as young people, we are so brave. We don't even have to point anyone. Anyone can just volunteer to come in. Can you please report back and just tell
We
me
are
about the
ready.
type of Ah, I know, I know. So just
Group
tell me
three is
about the
ready.
type of, yeah, go. Group three is ready.
Everyone's sort of
Okay.
ready.
Okay. Well, then group three will go first, group one will follow, and the last will be group two. So now you just tell us about the type of program discussed, the main change you guys identified, and the practical ideas for showing evidence of impact. Just those three, if you were able to answer those three. If you're able to answer two, it's still okay. You can just report on your discussion. Also, tell me about how was the atmosphere in your group. I know where these young people is always energy, but I want to hear from you guys. So, can you start with group three?
Thank you, Doc. Group three, we got straight to work. We finished the three questions, and we identified digital skills training as what we wanted to MERL. So, in regards to the first question about real change, we are hoping young people can experience in such a program is that it should be beyond awareness of the digital skills, right? It's yes, we know we need the digital skills, but
Yeah,
there should be access to such a program. And in the program itself, the depth of knowledge and understanding should be the center point, because
yeah,
that's what then triggers the ability to excel in what you've been taught. Which
yeah,
leads us to question number two on how would we know if change actually happened?
mm,
Um, and that would be because now they have that ability to use the skill
yeah,
and to, for example, gain an income, um, be employable based on something that's in demand that they learned because of the training program. And then the last question, um, what evidence can we collect to show that this change actually happened?
mm,
The most, well, I'll mention two. I think the first one was like a certification of completion of the training.
mm,
Um, Before we got cut off, we were going to discuss whether accreditation is that important, but there's some
mm,
kind of recognition that the person did the training. And then lastly is the people who are responsible for the training can reliably track where the person is. Did they open up an internet cafe? Are they in a
mm,
job? So follow the person basically, and therefore there's some kind of credible output of the outcome if it's
yeah,
done by the institution or the organization that trained the people. So that was where we ended off.
yeah. Well done. Guys, give group three a round of applause, please. I mean,
Group
with
three.
10 minutes,
We did
they
it.
were able to come up with such a lot. All right, let me check. Do we have a question for them? I'm sure they thought it's just ending here, but it's not. Not in this type of masterclass session. We ask questions. Do you have questions for them? Because I do. But can I give you the other guys a chance? So they chose an intervention or a program that is on digital skills development. So, and then you heard how they're saying they're going to see how the changes happen. You heard how they're saying they're going to know if that change is actually happening on the ground. And you heard them explaining the simple evidence that they will systematically or holistically collect to show that there's a change. Do you have any questions around it? I just want you to reflect it a bit and tell me if you've got questions around that. Anyone? Okay, there's no question, I assume. So maybe I've got one question for you guys. So maybe the last one. You said that you also, the simple evidence also include tracking the participants and see perhaps if they are being employed or they open internet cafe, etc. Is it that simple though? Is it the simple evidence?
It's not simple, Doc,
Yeah. And why?
because you have to keep track of those youngsters after the program. And
Yeah.
oftentimes they'll change contact details, etc., which is why
Yeah.
it's really important to have a reliable partner who has
Yeah.
that capability to begin with,
Yeah.
or that you actually get them to give you that feedback as they exit the program. And in certain
Yeah.
instances, one is able to do that, but in others, deep tracking initiatives are notoriously difficult and
Absolutely. And who was
expensive.
speaking? Yeah.
Vuyo.
Who speak? Vuyo. You're spot on. And I wanted to talk about that to say it's not really that simple. I can tell you because this is the challenge that we are having so far. We've got so many people that have been trained, participated in a lot of interventions. And when we try to see and trace them and see where are they actually, it's so difficult to get them. It could be because maybe they've changed their database, they've changed their contact details. You could no longer find them on a system. They were not systematically documented, etc. For example, South Africa produces top students during matric results. They become so top. I mean, if we can trace them back to 2010 and see where are those top students, it's not going to be a simple thing to find them. Do you know that? And then, but these are people who came top in the country. But we have to find them after 10 years and see where did they end up going? What did they end up doing after such a good performance in their high school? It's always a problem. It's always an issue. Most organizations do lose that data. They don't know how to store that data so that later on they can actually able to answer questions such as these. So, but thank you very much, Dr. I see there's a hand from Zugile. I can give you an opportunity to come in. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Doc. Just a sec. I think also it's not easy because as organizations that support employment, work with young people, provide opportunities,
Yeah.
we're starting to find companies that are all ready to employ these young people because you
Yeah.
can work around the skill and then you teach them and then they get the skill, they get the certificate. But in South Africa, it's difficult to
Yeah.
find, if you training them in hospitality, it's difficult to find a hotel that is ready to say, you know what, even if they do not have experience, bring them in if the employment is ready.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah, absolutely. No, I agree with you there, Ezekiel, as well. Okay, colleagues, thank you very much for this. Can I give group one a chance to come in, please? Who's representing group one?
I guess I will. I sort of took the lead when we got in there. It was one
Okay.
of we took a bit of a we took a little
Can
while to
I,
get
can,
going.
sorry,
Uh,
can I ask you
it was,
to also to turn your camera on, please, so that I can also see the
oh,
people.
yes.
It's good, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yes.
so
Yes, yeah.
we took a little bit of time to get going, and
Yeah,
yeah, so we decided to use one of our group members' projects kind of as an example. We sort of did a bit of
yeah,
a comparison, but
yeah,
we talked about entrepreneurship support coupled with mental health. It's
yes,
one of the programs deals with not only developing entrepreneurs, but also with increasing emotional intelligence.
yeah,
And obviously, we sort of decided that the main change we're hoping for in these programs, in most of these programs, is independence. It's
independent.
and
Yeah,
not just constantly asking the government for funding or asking the government for jobs, but in establishing your own income and
yeah,
your own independence. And that's really important. I think
yeah,
with an entrepreneurial program, it's quite straightforward because is the business in place? Is the business sustainable? The
yes,
assessment of the emotional intelligence, I think, is a little bit more
trick
tricky.
to measure, yeah.
Yeah, uh, we didn't get much time to go into that in too much detail because we wanted to just try and get through the questions. But we did talk a little bit about how the monitoring happens. And
Yeah,
with this particular organization, I forget the name. I'm terribly sorry, everybody. They start with monitoring very early in the program. So the monitoring is consistent, and they use a sort of a questionnaire on WhatsApp. It was WhatsApp, and there was WhatsApp, and just they monitor them that way. And I think that's really important, when it comes to people changing their addresses and changing their phone numbers, and it's quite difficult to maintain engagement beyond the program. But if you do have that very personal relationship with them and you are monitoring them continuously, then it's a lot easier to develop that type of relationship with them where they do continue to engage with you. And that's the key to gathering data, is to actually have engagement. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Fiona.
It was very rushed.
Yeah,
10 minutes
I
is not
understand.
long enough.
No, I did it deliberately. I do that. I know it requires time for you guys to think through, but you've done well. And give group one a round of applause, colleagues, please, for the good work as well.
Yes.
Much appreciated. Hey, do you have questions for them? I
you.
can see. I think I saw someone raising a hand. They are ready for you, Fiona, in your group. Do you have a question for them? It's one of those intervention. It's quite complex because it's measuring so many things. Like it's dealing with entrepreneurship. On the other hand, it's dealing with is it mind? Can you repeat that, Fiona? What is it about health, mental, something like that, right? Mental health, I think. Yeah.
Emotional intelligence, EQ.
Oh, emotional intelligence. Yeah. Or EQ. Oh, wow. Yeah. So one of those, and you can see these are two different variables, but at the same time, if I'm giving you money as a finder, I want to know whether is there a change happening. Then you find out sometimes you can strongly report on entrepreneurship because the indicators perhaps maybe are not as complicated. They're quite easy. Are the businesses generating profit? Are they sustainable? Are they still operating? But this one of EQ is quite tricky, and that's why you need really a lot of aspects to come in that kind of evaluations and help you guys measure some of those indicators that is to do with EQ and stuff. So, of course, if your organizations have money, it will be easy to get them. But if you're a simple organization that relies heavily on funders, it will be tricky, or maybe got limited funds. It will be tricky actually to report in that. And at some point, this is where most organizations are being encouraged to say, perhaps maybe you can just deal with one thing. It will be easy for you to measure and to have two things combined. But your idea and your vision as an organization, now we want to have these two because they complement one another. And we've got these two, but funders don't want, they're no longer interested in your ideas. Remember, the reason why they're funding you is because they like your idea. But now it's time your idea come into reality. And now they're interested in that now to say, but in reality, how to translate these into evidence and see that indeed this is the change that we want from the ground. So it's a tricky one, but of course I cannot discourage people not to do programs like these or intervention like this. We need them. If the issue of EQ it's a problem, and then there should be intervention. Why not? But yeah, the measurement of that, it becomes tricky because the reason why. Yeah, you want to come in? Yes,
I can't take credit for that program. It was one of our the other group members, but yeah, it's fascinating to me, and I'd actually love to find out more about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've got the organization I work for, we have some slightly more they're easier to measure parameters, but they're just like I said, the continuous engagement post program is where we encounter the most difficulty.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. Well, let's hear from Tando, then we go to group 2. Tando?
Thank you so much, Dr. Lisedi. So we are the ones that are doing that program. And yeah, some of the things that we've done is we've introduced adaptive monitoring, evaluation, reporting, and learning. So as we start the program, that's what we do. And that also includes feedback loops and we use different ways. So there's also 360 degrees review. And what we've also introduced is alumni teams. So we don't just take it in the program, but and we also don't do it maybe quarterly or whatever. It's part. We've embedded it in what we do. So it's easier to also track the changes in how you manage your program or how you manage staying in a job. So we've created relationships with beneficiaries, and I think we've also created a trust relationship as well. So we also just look at them as how longevity, longevity, how they stick it in and how they give in. And we've also made sure that we give them mentors, coaches, and sponsors as well, so that we are able to track them. So that's
absolutely
that we've
no, I think you answered me, Tando. I'm not going to add anything or even take out anything from what I've said. Alumni engagement are quite important. And if you've got an intervention that includes a lot of people, group of young people, then you cannot just have them in that program and just neglect them. You need to have those alumni engagements so that you can keep them. And that's a trust and relationship that Tan is talking about, which you build and they become part of the family, and that's how you go with them. No, it shouldn't be a once-off thing. So I think that can work also to see the change as you're having them close by. So that's a great one. Thank you very much, Tando. I see we are running out of time. Can I get group 1, please?
Yeah, group 2, you mean, Dr. Magala?
Oh, sorry, group 2. Yes, group 2.
Yeah, so we did run out of time, unfortunately. Yeah. I'm not sure if it's because it's around lunchtime, so my group members were a bit quiet and less engaging, but I'm not holding it against them. It is lunch hour and people need energy. But on the topic on are we measuring what truly matters? What surfaced from group 2 was that measuring well-being, things like well-being, agency, confidence. These are behavior changes, which often can have rapid shifts, right? So what you start off with and where you are in the middle and where you end up becomes a bit difficult to measure. What also came up was it feels like the measurement of this on behavioral change is a bit shallow. And measuring things like confidence and well-being and so forth. And the question came up in terms of how do we know what's really happening? Like what's holistically, are we really, can we take what the youth is telling us once they've stepped out of the program? And another organization shared that, they've been, before attending this knowledge exchange program, they've been consciously unconscious in a sense that they are doing work with young people, they are observing behavior, but they're not taking behavior observation notes. And they're not doing what you had mentioned earlier on in your discussion with Tammy around reflection sessions, storytelling, and observation notes. And so that is something that will be taken moving on. Someone said, measuring impact is difficult to measure, and it does take a while, especially when you are measuring behaviors. And so observations can be at times complemented with the use of surveys, and evaluations can then be done to measure things such as confidence, behavior, and so forth. And at the end of the discussion, just before we ran out of time, and it did come off that there was a consensual agreement that, measuring these sort of behaviors such as confidence and so forth does seem a bit shallow and a bit difficult.
All right.
I'm not sure if
Thank you
any
very
of
much.
my group members wanted to add other things. What do you mean by shallow? I'm going to let my members respond to that, Mbali.
Don't worry, we'll give them time. I think they can also write on a chest, but you guys have done a great job. Can we give group 1 a round of applause, please?
Group 2, Dr. Lisette.
Group 2. The reason why I forget group 2 is because also I see the approach up here too, like unlike the other groups where they started by identifying their own intervention or program, but I see your approach. It was more of asking those deeper questions to say, but how do we actually do this? Like, is this thing really doable? Is this thing really measurable? And I like that because I mean, part of M&E, we also need to critique these things. We shouldn't just think that everything can be simply measured, of which is not. And some things are not as simply measured like that. They're so tricky to measure. But there's things called triangulation, where we're trying to find use different sources to find information to actually get to understand something. And that's where we're going. Colleagues, I'm going to run a bit quick. I'm so sorry. We are running behind. This is because the engagement was getting very nice, and I just wanted to hear from the rest of you. But there were questions which were asked, I think, on the chats, and then while we were in the breakout sessions, I was told that I need to touch on them. Some I'll touch on them as I go through this session, but some I can just answer them. I think there was a question about really how do we really collect that evidence? This is not just a simple thing. And I think Group 2 also asked that question. But colleagues, you collect evidence by intentionally documenting the change as it happens. You don't wait until late. And that's what most organizations are doing, which is a terrible mistake. Because if you wait until late, it becomes expensive. It becomes complicated. People are no longer there. People do not stay. I myself am guilty. I don't know how many organizations have changed. People do not stay. So if you're going back and trace those sources, or you might not find them. You might not even find that information if you measure after a long time. So you need to do it as it happens. As you're busy with the things, you should do it. For example, have those attendance registers, before and after surveys, participants feedbacks, WhatsApp follow-ups, and even WhatsApp groups, photos and videos, testimonials, observation notes, etc. These are the things that need to happen regularly. I think Group 1 is touched on that to say they keep that relationship so that they can do this not after such a long time, because there it becomes very expensive and complicated. So the key here is consistent, I can tell you. You need to be consistent. So, because when you talk about evidence in simple terms, it's a proof that change is happening. That's the evidence that they want. So why would you wait after such a long time to collect that? There was another question about whether are there AI tools to do this? As much as I love technology, like I love AI, I love to be. But colleagues, there are several, of course, AI-supported MERL and data collection tools that organizations use nowadays for efficiency, even at small scale. Some are free, some you need to pay for and stuff like that. But hey, for example, you can see now Google Forms, they've got these AI summaries where they can just summarize things for you. But I want to warn you, colleagues, about AI. As I always warn my students as well. So AI should not support learning and analysis. I think they should make these things efficient, but should not. I mean, AI should of course support learning analysis, but should not replace human understanding and community engagement. Because to understand people on the ground, we still need that human element of it, and not to use AI to analyze what is really happening within communities and within societies. At some point, we might lose touch with the reality of what is happening on the ground. And trust me, you can tell between something that is AI generated and is human generated. You can tell that now, but this thing doesn't really speak to what, and you would have done a lot of injustices to that community. I'm telling you, because you need to tell us the reality. I mean, that's the reason why you are existing. You are a youth-based organization that is telling us the stories of young people on the ground. But so the type of AI tools that you want to employ, I think you gotta be careful and to see, does it still leave a room for that human element where I need human understanding, where I need to understand exactly what the community. So what the community is actually, what is happening within the community. Another question, I think it was about these things do take time. For example, if you have to look at impact, it takes time, years before measuring anything. You cannot just measure right on the way. Well, you can still measure. You can still measure, but the question is, what exactly are you measuring? But you can still measure. You can still measure early changes in confidence. You can still measure that. You can still measure participation. You can still measure skills gain just after immediate section. you can still measure behavior shifts, attitude, engagement levels, and access to opportunities. The most important thing is consistency. You just have to measure consistently. And then you can now start measuring from now and measuring from later. What does the data tell you? But it's important that you start measuring early. Personally, you might not report early, but to measure, you measure immediately, actually. That's what I can advise you to do. Okay. Can I just continue now? I'm going to run a bit quickly because I had that is lunch. So I'm not going to waste time. So now let's talk about these, which I said we'll talk about it. The difference between outputs and outcomes, impact. What are they? What are they? So many organizations, like I said, will collect large amounts of information, but often struggle to differentiate between what are the activities, what are the immediate results, and the long-term change. But then understanding these, colleagues, is quite important. Actually, is one of the most important foundations of practical MERL. You go anywhere else where they teach M&E, you will see that they will emphasize of their student understanding exactly this. So why? Because you look at the level between these two are quite different. Let's look at outputs from what it means. An example. Output, it will be what the organization delivered is good. People want to know that. The funders want to know that. An example would be 100 youth attended a digital skills workshop. And what would be the outcomes here? They can be differentiate between the short to medium term change resulting from the program itself. And in this case, that will be your youth gain practical digital and job readiness skills. These are the things that you want to see. And these are things that you see from an outcome level. So, but what will be the impact here? Which is another term that comes in, which can add confusion amongst these two. Impact here, it will be the broader long-term change in people's lives or communities. It's a broader. Most of the time, they will measure maybe after 3 years or after 5 years just to see an impact of something. So in this case, it will be your improved employability and access to economic opportunities. It read quite easy, but it is actually more technical now to measure an impact because there could be a lot of interventions that contributed or attributed to people perhaps maybe getting employment or etc. But you can actually measure how your respective intervention could have contributed to that. And these are the difference between the two. So far, I think most of our youth organizations are still stuck on the input level. Most of their reports are reporting more about outputs more than outcomes and impact. And we need to shift away from that. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to run quickly, as I said. So, but when you need to measure, you need to have things called indicators. You need to have indicators, which we call them yardsticks, again, to help you measure exactly the progress or anything about that intervention. And to develop indicators, Alex, it can take, depending with the intervention, if it's simple or complex, it can take serious amount of time, and it requires a collective effort for you to develop these indicators so that you can know whether you're going to collect data from specified and defined indicators and not just from general indicators. So the mistake I've seen with most of our reports as youth organizations, these things are so general, and you're asking yourself, but how do we really measure these things if you're going to say this is the number that you're going to? Some are not really specific and etc. Then it becomes a challenge. But then, what do indicators help us track as organization? And these are the following: progress, improvement, participation, behavior change, and program effectiveness. And that's why we need indicators, because they help us with these. Now, good indicators should also help answer the following question. How will we know if our program is making a difference? How will we know? That's why I gave you that exercise deliberately, so that I can hear if you can able to identify specific indicators about the program that we have chosen. Because I want you to know exactly where to collect that data and where to have that information to measure if we are really making a difference. Because you could be doing a lot of work, but not knowing exactly where to measure the difference that you guys are actually making on the ground. And I've got, of course, a table with practical examples on the other side, which shows, for example, if the program goal is improve youth confidence, then a possible indicator will have something like a percentage of participants reporting increased confidence as a result. I know sometimes they say it's shallow. Those who say it's shallow is because maybe it's coming from maybe one source of information and stuff, but you can still triangulate this to see if indeed the confidence have increased, not just from the person itself, but you can see with other activities if that confidence is really increased. But that's one possible indicator. You can have as many that can actually measure if the confidence has improved. Increase employability. Now, this is where maybe you look at the number of participants assessing jobs or internships. There could be other indicators that you develop that also goes to increase employability. Couldn't be just one indicator. But the most important thing, again, you shouldn't make them many and difficult to measure as well and very complicated. I think they should be simple and well defined so that at the end we want to see exactly if this indicator, so that you can report on that indicator. For example, when I ask you, can you tell me if as a result of this, is there any increase of employability? Then you go back to that indicator and then you look at the number of participants that are accessing jobs and internships, etc. Then you can able to report on that. So strengthen participation, number of youth participating in community activities, how many, like for example, I told you earlier that in my class I asked and actually almost all of them said, no, we are not participating in our communities and stuff. Improve digital skills, participants able to complete practical digital tasks. Some of these things are quite straightforward to measure. You don't have to use multiple sources to actually measure that. You can also use just few indicators to see if indeed there is improved digital skills. Support leadership development, number of youth taking leadership roles after training. Well, it's a tricky because you can take leadership without even getting a leadership training and stuff like that. But also, it should be that you can look at the attitude before and after getting involved in those leadership courses or trainings and see if ever as a result where you join that, you take those leadership roles as a result of participating in that program or not. So these are some of the simple indicators which you can develop for your own organization to see if really you are measuring the right things. Okay. Now, of course, there are practical MERL tools youth organization can use because like simple them. So I'm just going to mention simple ones because I understand like the challenges that we guys operate. So like I say, the MERL does not need expensive systems. Of course, it depends, but for us, youth organization, it really doesn't need these expensive tools. Actually, you can have practical tools such as your Google Forms, your WhatsApp, your attendance registers, reflection sessions, before and after questions, observation notes, photos and videos. So just made it part of your culture as an organization to say these are the things that we do. We don't just create an event and just let it go like that and not just embedding some of these things so that we can understand what really happened. Because I can tell you that they always do have attendance registers. They always have that. Sometimes they do have reflection sessions, but not really those ones that are really comprehensive. It's just amongst them, but not reflecting with the beneficiaries of those interventions. The observation notes, some do not make them at all. They just leave it. I mean, if we walk out here in this and then we do not, and then maybe Tammy and they really didn't observe anything and make notes, it means the same session that is going to come is going to be the same. If it was worse, it's going to be worse. It's not going to improve because there were no observations made. And that's not how M&E should be like. We are learning, like I said. You should give us that learning opportunity to see where things went right and where things went wrong. Okay, now, yeah, these are some of the practical examples where you can ask questions before a program, such as what do participants already know? What challenges are they experiencing? And that is before the program. And during the program, now these are the questions that you need to ask yourself. Are the participants engaged? Are they participating actively. Then after the program, you can look at questions such as what changed, what skills or knowledge were gained, what opportunities emerged. When in an evaluation language, we can classify this as, for example, the other one, during the program, we call it ongoing evaluation, where you actually evaluating as the program is being implemented, as things are done. And after, we call it summative evaluation. That's where things are done. And now you're coming back to see what really changed, what skills or knowledge were gained, and what opportunities emerge as a result of this. So the key message here, colleagues, is that good MERL is less about expensive technology and more about intentional learning and evidence collection. I understand the issue of having sophisticated software to do things, but I think for me, it all lies on the intentional learning of whether you want to learn about your interventions or your programs, etc., and also about collecting the right evidence. Okay, so now storytelling is very important, and that's why I had to develop a slide specifically for this. We've seen our president delivering a SONA, and then he made a storytelling along the speech about someone called Inswalo. And did you see how that grabbed attention? Millions of people had to listen to that. Why? Stories matter, especially in youth development where colleagues, it matters. As much as numbers are important, to say 100 people benefited from these, but there are things that they do not always capture. And those things has to do with the lived experiences, personal growth, confidence, motivation, or transformation. Sometimes you need to hear those things through storytelling. When sitting down with someone and telling the story how a certain intervention has transformed their life. And that is why for us, many people, storytelling is always part of the tools that we use to get information or to collect evidence. This is because the stories themselves, they can tell us, they can humanize the impact and not make it too technical, where you feel like, but this thing does not still speak to the people on the ground. But the story, when it comes, it can humanize that impact and it can communicate the change. It can build the trust that I think one of his dude or someone here spoke about it, and can also demonstrate the real experiences behind the data that is reporting. Because the data will be graphs that shows you that things are increasing, stagnating, what. And then people are like, but is this thing speaking to us really on the ground, or is this thing fabricated or stuff like that? But when the storytelling comes, it gives us that evidence and that element of it, of how it helps us. So the important thing about these colleges is that many organizations have powerful stories, I can tell you, but they are not documenting them consistently and not linking them to the program outcomes or not using them strategically. But I've seen some using them strategically, where they can even make a short document about it and someone telling the story, and it can grab attention of a lot of people. Well, that's not the aim, but the aim also is to humanize that impact so that we gain the intervention has done, right? Especially us as youth, we do a lot of good work in many areas. So we need to make sure that we use storytelling as part of those evidence tools. And then you can get these through surveys, attendance, etc. But then also evidence as well, you can get it through surveys, attendance, indicators, and outcomes, etc. Where you also, especially where you need to hear the community voices, that one is quite important. And a lot of organizations are scared actually to go through the road where they want to hear from the communities, what are they saying about their respective interventions? Because they're scared that the information that might come there might be negative and not positive, and that may influence other things and stuff. So the key reflection here is that data explain the scale of change, and that's good. But then stories help people understand the meaning of that change. What is the meaning behind those numbers, that data that is reported about the intervention or your program? Okay, another thing which youth are doing quite well is social media, digital platforms, I know most people love these things and they use them quite well, but are they using them strategically? I think we still have a challenge on that aspect. You look at the digital spaces, have become more important sources of feedback and engagement. Most of us stays, I mean, commit a lot of hours in these social media platforms than anywhere else, than being in a library and stuff. And I think these days we stay digital than we are always online, let me put it that way, than being offline. And so now it's important to also go where people are. If you are a youth organization leader, you need to follow people where they are. Why would people stay on social media for about 4 hours a day and every day of the month? And when you're still going the other way around, it's like you're going the opposite of where people are. And that's what our government is doing. So we see that young people increasingly engage, communicate, organize, and express themselves through digital platforms. There were a lot of movements you and I we can talk about. We started on social media platforms. So as a result now, the social media and these digital platforms can provide valuable insight in. And you can measure things such as participation, engagement, perceptions, more especially perceptions. How do people feel about something that is happening in this country? You can get it on social media, those perceptions, but you have to have skills and tools of how to measure those perceptions. You can also get things such as community concern, program reach, and youth experiences on social media alone. So for many youth organizations, digital platforms to them have become communication tools, engagement tools, advocacy tools, and potential mail tools. But I can tell you that some are still stuck on just making them a communication tool to communicate messages and stuff. But to move beyond engagement and potential mails, yeah, we still have a lot of work to do there. Especially us here in Africa, we still have a lot to do there. To how can we do mail via social media? We still have a lot of to do, a lot of skills that we need to develop to actually do that. And I can tell you, if we get there, this will be very useful and a game changer for most of these youth organizations. Okay. Okay, I was supposed to do another breakaway, but I'm not gonna do it because we don't have time. So I just want to touch on this, like that MERL is more than a donor requirement. I've said that, and I'm saying it now. MERL is beyond just reporting. MERL should help us survive and grow. And I really mean it, survive and grow. A lot of organizations which are registered in South Africa do not even get up to 10 years or 5 years. As a result, they die quickly. They've got good intentions, like of what change they wanted to bring in a society. But then when you go back and see what happened, you see that they did not have a mail system. They couldn't document the change that they're doing. As a result, they feel like they were no longer relevant, or some they ran out of funds, donors are no longer funding them, etc. So I can tell you, ML can be a game changer in your organization because it can help you survive and grow. But it can also improve your programs, it can strengthen your decision making and not just make decisions that are not informed by research, but decisions that are just informed by assumptions. And mail can also help you stay relevant and sustainable. There are a lot of organizations that have been created back then, and they are losing touch with the reality of what is happening right now. But if you've got mail, it will help you to track and monitor if you're still relevant. Are your services or whatever that you're delivering still relevant? Because things change and such. And it's through mail that you can get that kind of information, right? Okay, so for many organizations, colleagues, for many organizations, I would say that mail really it's a challenge. It's still lacking simply because of the perception of how you guys think about it. And I hope by today, at the end of this, you will think differently about this. Okay. I think I spoke about some of these challenges which youth organizations normally face. And then I think I've touched a lot about them. So I'm just gonna pass it because of time. But of course, I'm gonna just touch on this important reflection. Mail should not only capture success stories though. And that's what most of our organizations, even in the public sector, are doing. They like to tell us good stories. When someone takes a report, go to Parliament and tell us what good has happened with that intervention, with that project, with that program. But we all know that we're not as naive. We know that there's all these things that went wrong. And then the MERL should tell us now that side of it again to say this went wrong. And that's where we should also help the organization to learn, adapt, and improve. If you're always doing things right, I mean, where to improve? Because you things are always right. The results are but if sometimes the results are not as intended, then you know exactly where to improve, you know where to learn. And next time you're not gonna repeat the same thing. But if you don't report on those failures and you bury them somewhere so that people don't know, for me, like when someone read a report like that, or when I read a report like that, I'm like, this is too good to be true. It's too good to be true. And people are brilliant, you should not take them like that, like and think that if you're telling them nice things, they're not asking the other way around to say, but really, like, so it's important to have a balanced report that reflects everything that took place about that intervention, about that program. Why the goal here is to practical, honest, useful, really, especially honestly, which goes with you being ethical and not lie to people about a lot of these interventions. I'm also talking about the future evaluators that are going to evaluate programs, to be honest, and to make sure they report exactly what is happening about that intervention and not lie. Because even if they found out later that you lied, they're just gonna distance themselves to you and you're gonna lose funding and no one will want to find you in future. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I just want to touch on this on building a learning culture inside youth organization because I know now you've got a question to say, but now Matal, how do we actually do this in our organizations? How do I go back and tell them that we need to have a MERL system in place? So start by understanding why youth participation matters. It matters because you guys generate better evidence about youth perspective, which can strengthen relevance, effectiveness, and deeper understanding of the impact. But also, participation builds ownership. It means that organizations become more responsive, inclusive, and community-centered. So now, what are the practical ways that we can go about doing that? Of course, this should be through youth reflection session. You should not engage with youth once and come back again after some years or after some long time and want to hear from them. It doesn't work like that. It should be more occasional. Have those peer feedback activities, have those youth-led storytelling, and their organization actually doing that, but doing it systematically this time around. Have those participatory evaluations, co-designing surveys, youth advisory groups, digital feedback platforms such as WhatsApp, and others. I know there are many where they're in one group. It's a digital platform where they engage and so to have those. They're quite important to stay in touch with youth and have those community dialogues. They're quite important as well. So the key message here, colleagues, is that good MERL should not only measure programs. It should not only do that. I know that's the purpose of it, but it should also create spaces where young people themselves can influence learning, shape decisions, and also contribute to program improvement. So I will end here because I was just have to rush and not take more than the time that I was given. As I said from the beginning, that I was given a time. And as an evaluator, I did bad because I didn't stay according to the allocated time. I think I had about 25 minutes extra of that, and I apologize for that. But thank you very much, colleagues, for listening to me. And I can take questions if need be. Yeah, but thank you. I'll hand it over to Tammy.
Thank you very much, Dr. Matlala. I finished 5 minutes before we're scheduled to end the entire workshop altogether, right? But we appreciate the presentation and the knowledge that you have shared with us today, and also, helps us to look at monitoring, evaluation, and learning in a different light and in a different perspective. So So from the YD Co-Lab team, we want to start off by saying thank you. But before we get to that part, right? As a close up from your end, right? If you want the people who have been with us for the past 2 hours or so to leave remembering one thing about monitoring, evaluation, and learning, what would it be? Like, you've shared a lot, and all of it is important, and nothing is less
Yeah.
important than the other. But what is for you the main key takeaway you would love everyone to leave with, and take away from this session?
Yeah. Okay, to be short, I want everyone here to remember that MERL is not only about reporting to donors or your funders, but it's about understanding whether your organization is genuinely or practically making a difference and how you can strengthen that impact over time. I think that's a message that I want to leave with everyone here.
Okay. No, thank you very much. And then yeah, this one last in terms of questions.
Yeah,
Uh, the theme for today's discussion has been measuring what matters, right?
yeah.
And for you, what does as Dr. Lesedi Matlala, what does that mean to you when we say measuring what matters as a close up?
Okay. Hopefully this one is the close up. Okay, so for me, it means moving beyond counting activities and focusing on human transformation. I can put it that way. I mean, we've been doing a lot of counting. We are better than that as a country now. We are now more learned, more aware. So we should move just counting activities and focus on human transformation. So it means whether asking young people are becoming more confident, assessing opportunities, building skills, participating meaningfully in society, and improving their long-time life outcomes. So that is what truly matters now, not just counting things. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And that's quite important. Human lived experience is what matters. The change that we make is more important than we've trained 5 people, right? So thank you for that. And I appreciate also the storytelling aspect that you included in your webinar, in your presentation, because that's also what we're trying to drive through as an ecosystem, the importance of storytelling and the importance of telling the impact of your work. We are more than just we've trained 100 people. We are more than just 10 people have went through our program. There's lives that we actually impact and lives that we actually change and communities that we improve as a result of the work that the different organizations that are participating in this webinar and far beyond are doing. So thank you for just also, re-emphasizing and reaffirming the importance of storytelling when it comes to the work that we do. And to our colleagues who've been part of the call and making time, thank you very much for giving your full attention to Dr. Matlala from SAMEA. We really appreciate you being present throughout the time. You know, when you start talking monitoring and evaluation, some people tend to frown a bit because of the nature of the work, but it's important in ensuring that we sustain the work that we do. So thank you very much to everyone who participated in the breakout rooms, who participated in the comment section. We really appreciate it. And what we'll do is that the session has been recorded and the session will be shared through our Ubuntu platform. And before it goes onto our YouTube platform. So feel free to also get in touch with me to find out if you don't know about our Ubuntu platform, and I'll take you through it and I'll ensure that you are available there. What we have also started doing is that we've started also sharing resources from the SAMEA on our Ubuntu platform, and we'll be sharing more resources that can also, give you more insights and help you just think about monitoring and evaluation in more practical ways and more ways that actually speak to the work that you're doing. So be on the lookout for our Ubuntu platform and the communication with regards to that. I see there's a hand up. We're out of time, but I will take that hand and then close off. Margaret?
No, I'm okay. I wanted to know if the presentation will be shared, so I'm covered. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And what also we want to experiment with is using some of your comments and section, some of your inputs in the comment section as part of, reflections that we can share on social media. Hopefully that is okay. If you're not okay, please let us know. But you guys have also shared important insights in the comment section, which would make great graphics to reflect and share with other people who weren't able to make it today. With that being said, colleagues, to SAMEA, to everyone who participated, thank you very much for making time. We really appreciate you, and we will stay connected. Please also look in the comment section. We have shared what you call this. We have shared a evaluation form that you can fill in that makes us understand monitoring and evaluation from your end. Have you guys lost me? Hello?
No, you're fine.
You're
fine. We lost you for a second. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. So please check the comment section. There's a survey that Lolo has shared. Please fill it in. And there's also a survey that we shared prior to this. Helps us understand the status of monitoring and evaluation within our youth sector, and also it contributes towards the partnership we're building with SAMEA in terms of monitoring and evaluation within our youth development ecosystem. So colleagues, I really appreciate your time, and I don't want to take more than I have. I've already stolen 2 minutes that I hadn't asked for. So thank you. We really appreciate you. Cheers.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Doc. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. It was lovely to meet some of you.